Believe it or not, certain top-class thespians very much grew up putting some quite peculiar things in their mouths, and were paid a surprisingly tiny amount of dollars for their part in some of the most successful movies of the 90s. I'm Gareth, this is Whatculture.com, and here are ridiculous actor stories you won't believe are real. Channing Tatum was freaking out badly when he met Matt Damon. With Channing Tatum shooting Steven Soderbergh's Haywire at the time, Matt Damon decided to join the team for a few drinks after they'd finished filming for the day. And it was here when the Foxcatcher actor nervously decided to ask an icon he was very much a fan of exactly where he was from. Matt Damon, arguably one of the most famous actors to ever come out of Massachusetts. Channing. Tatum himself even admitted that everybody on the planet knows where he's from, with the star hilariously confessing to still producing a cold sweat whenever he thinks about the ridiculous opening line to this day. Luckily for the Chan man though, Damon is a nice enough fella, and happily answered the obvious question. The two are even friendly still today, proving that it's possible to recover from even the most awkward of first impressions, folks. Tom Hanks was cast in Splash after kicking Fonzie. Had the actor not showed up on Happy Days back in 1982 and kicked one of the most iconic sitcom characters of all time's ass, who knows whether Tom Hanks would have gone on to become the household name he is today. According to the icon in an interview on Sirius XM's The Jess Cagle Show, it was actually that ridiculous karate-kicking moment with the Fonz that strangely led to him being cast in what would ultimately become his breakout role in Splash. On top of being possibly the first person to ever strike Fonzie, booting him through a stained glass window in the show, Hanks was also brought in to audition for Ron Howard's incoming movie. After Happy Days and Splash writers Babaloo Mandel and Lowell Gans and the director all agreed this guy who kicked Fonzie through a plain glass window might be good. That's one way to get on someone's radar. Rege Jean Page remembers there being a radio competition to locate him. After quickly becoming one of the most recognizable small-screen stars on the planet, as Bridgerton landed on Netflix in 2020, there were a few moments when Rege Jean Page suddenly realized his career would never be the same again. When appearing on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert to promote his then incoming Dungeons & Dragons movie, Page recalled a particularly ridiculous time there, when he discovered that a radio show were running a competition to see who could find him. This was all going down not long after the star landed in Belfast to shoot that aforementioned fantasy adventure, with Bridgerton coming out a couple of months earlier around Christmas. And when he got in the car to leave the airport, the driver turned on the radio, revealing that said station were asking folks to call in if they knew where Page was. Unsurprisingly, the actor then opted to hole up in the hotel for much of the shoot. You can't blame him, can you? Though that still couldn't keep some rather friendly Irish folks from finding him. Now what do you think is the greatest show on Netflix today? Is it Bridgerton or something else? Let me know in the comment section below, my friends. Jessica Chastain used to eat orange and banana peels to get people to notice her. Before realizing that the acting life was definitely for her, Jessica Chastain was simply a youngster who yearned for some attention at elementary school. She would eventually find theatre at junior high. However, in the time leading up to that, the star recently admitted to Mark Maron on his WTF podcast that she developed a pretty bizarre habit to ensure she was noticed by her fellow classmates. When sitting down in the school cafeteria each day, Chastain would actually chow down on a bunch of orange and banana peels in plain sight. And while she knew said act was terrible, the future eyes of Tammy Faye star just wanted folks to pay attention to her. The fact she was being noticed for being a weirdo, in her words, did not matter to her at the time, because in her words, she felt that at least I was existing, I'm something. Who knows, had the Oscar winner not discovered her fellow weirdos in the theatre a few years later, perhaps she'd still be eliciting funny looks for her orange and banana peel snacks in the staff room today. Jenna Ortega has had some bizarre fan interactions on planes post-Wednesday. Whilst talking to THR about some of the time she's been recognised by fans, Wednesday star Jenna Ortega would explain how she possessed a number of weird plane stories, with the star sometimes waking up to notes fellow passengers have left her. How sweet? Things got even weirder on a flight she'd literally gotten off a few days before sitting down for said THR chat though. As Ortega went to leave the aircraft, a flight attendant decided to take her bun down and revealed that she too boasted a pair of braids and bangs. You know, just like Wednesday, yay! Not stopping there, the attendant then went out of her way to tell a no doubt spooked Ortega that you made me do this. But at least she didn't bust out some of Wednesday's trademark moves in the aisle, eh? Rhys decided to make a strange joke during his James Bond audition. In what seemed like an attempt to take the edge off of a quite terrifying meeting at the Broccoli family's offices, as the team were looking to recast James Bond after Pierce Brosnan's departure, the American star Rhys decided to crack an ill-advised joke in response to an unexpected question. The Welsh actor was asked what would you do differently with Bond? His response? Feeling it could have potentially been a trick question, the star was unsure whether they wanted someone to say they wouldn't change a thing, or that the franchise was in need of something a bit different this time around. Rhys instead cheekily suggested perhaps giving Bond a limp. Not a sound, eh? Not a sound. His ridiculous/hilarious follow-up of an eye patch similarly didn't go down very well with the folks in the room. So much for that then. Pedro Pascal would let fans gouge his eyes until he got an infection. Returning to that THR chat with various actors about some of their strangest interactions with fans over the years, The Mandalorian and The Last of Us megastar Pedro Pascal chose to reveal exactly what certain Game of Thrones lovers would ask him to do a few years back whenever they took their phones out for a selfie. According to the much-loved actor, these passionate Thrones fans wanted him to let them shove their thumbs into his eyes whilst the photo was being taken, similarly to how his character of Prince Oberyn Martell was viciously killed in the show by the Mountain. Because why the hell not, eh? However, these bizarre fan moments ultimately led to him actually getting a bit of an eye infection. Lovely. Thankfully, it seems those days of being thumbed in the pupil by his supporters are far behind Pascal, with fans now being more likely to hand them their child or call him daddy today. Bryan Cranston once pulled out a penis water gun during a Breaking Bad scene. According to co-star Bob Odenkirk, when talking to GQ about the legend, the mighty Bryan Cranston was usually all business when the cameras were rolling, though he was very much happy to mess around with his scene partners once the director had finally called cut. However, Jesse Pinkman himself, Aaron Paul, was quick to point out how he actually remembered a number of silly occasions when his colleague was very much effing around whilst the cameras were certainly rolling. In fact, at one point, Paul even recalled a scene where Cranston was supposed to hand him a gun whilst filming Breaking Bad. But instead of giving him that weapon, he suddenly pulled out a water pistol shaped like a penis and proceeded to squirt him with it. Because he is the one who squirts too, apparently. Yep, I said what I said. Seann William Scott was only paid $8,000 for the original American Pie. Despite stealing the entire 1999 coming-of-age rated-R show, with his instantly iconic and relentlessly obnoxious performance as the jock in American Pie, the actor who brought this much-loved Steve Stifler to life wasn't paid anywhere near as much as you likely expected. Though American Pie would go on to make a staggering $235 million on a $10 million budget, Seann William Scott incredibly only walked away from the experience with a paycheck of just $8,000. According to the star himself when talking on the Rich Eisen show about the money he earned for that first Stifler appearance, he'd go on to spend most of that dollar on a used Thunderbird. Scott then ended up working at the LA Zoo as a churro guy, as he was waiting for American Pie to come out. Fast forward a few years, however, and Scott very much got paid to return for American Reunion in 2012, with the same lad who once splurged his entire American Pie paycheck on a used car, reportedly being offered $5 million for his fourth big screen appearance as Stifler. Glenn Powell thought Tom Cruise had killed him during a skydive. On top of gifting his Top Gun Maverick co-star Glenn Powell some flying lessons, action superstar and real-life daredevil Tom Cruise got this hangman into skydiving too. And it was Cruise's insistence on Powell falling out of the sky that actually very nearly got the latter killed in the end. As the Devotion star would explain during a chat with Jimmy Fallon on The Tonight Show, his first attempt at skydiving in the UK didn't exactly go to plan, after the team he was falling with decided it was too windy to jump out of a plane that day. Cruise eventually got wind of Powell not actually performing the jump and poked his colleague with a "Hey man, what, are you scared?" Very mature, Tom. So Powell returned for some more skydiving insanity. Only on this occasion, the actor discovered that Cruise had told the folks in charge that he could only dive out of the plane on his own during his first jump. Marvellous! But when the actor went to reach for his tab to pull his parachute during this solo fall, he simply could not find it. Instead of Cruise being somewhat responsible for the shocking death of his fellow on-screen pilot though, Powell was finally able to find the tab just in time. And after scarily coming in way below altitude and rather hot, Powell only went and hopped on a plane for round 2 like the ridiculous Tom Cruise 2.0 he is. Did he learn nothing?